2022, the first international conference on smart technology, applied informatics, and engineering. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you back at this international conference, and on behalf of the organizing committee, I'm Albert, would like to extend our gratitude and appreciation for your active participation at this event. And ladies and gentlemen, in this beautiful occasion, please do allow me to greet the Honorable Vice Rector for Academic and Student Affairs of Universitas Sebelas Maret, keynote speakers and moderators, and also all participants. Well, ladies and gentlemen, APICS 2022 is organized by the Informatics Engineering Department of Vocational School Universitas Sebelas Maret and is supported by the Institute of Research and Community Service of Universitas Sebelas Maret, the Vocational School of Universitas Sebelas Maret, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers Indonesia Section, Aptikom Jawa Tengah, or Asosiasi Pendidikan Tinggi Informatika dan Komputer Jawa Tengah, Indonesian Journal of Applied Informatics, and APICS. Ladies and gentlemen, APICS 2022 is held under the theme Driving Digital Transformation Towards Society 5.0 through Smart Technology and Artificial Intelligence. It's a great forum for all of us to discuss and prepare the super smart society by empowering citizens so they will be able to adapt to the era of digitalization. And ladies and gentlemen, to start the second day of APICS 2022, would like to have the opening speech, which will be delivered by Professor Ahmad Yunus, the Vice Rector for Academic and Student Affairs of Universitas Sebelas Maret. Professor Ahmad Yunus, now the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning to all honorable participants wherever you are. I am pleased to welcome you to the first international conference on smart technology, applied informatics and engineering, known as APICS, a conference organized and hosted by the Informatics Engineering Department of the School of Vocational, Universitas Sebelas Maret. Distinguished participants, I would like to thank the conference committee for the time and effort. Special thanks also to all the presenters who share their findings. I am excited to welcome all of the keynote speakers. They are experts in their research field, and we can benefit from their valuable experience. Thank you all to keynote speakers, Associate Professor Naoki Fukuta from Shizuoka University, Japan, Associate Professor Wei-Cheng Wang from National Cheng Kung University, Taiwan, Associate Professor Thompson from Curtin University, Australia, and also Dr. Heri Prastyo from Sebelas Maret University. All valuable knowledge from the keynote speaker will set the direction for the future research in information technology. Honorable participant, this year's conference theme is Driving Digital Transformation Towards Society 5.0 through Smart Technology and Artificial Intelligence. As the world progresses, we are entering the Society 5.0 phase. The aim of Society 5.0 is to create a prosperous, human-centered society through the innovation of technology. Society 5.0 will elevate the potential of individual relationships that we have today by utilizing technology to encourage the improvement of people welfare through the super smart society. I am confident that all the keynote speakers will give valuable takeaway from this conference. Numerous latest finding and innovation will enliven this conference. I hope this conference could offer a platform for discussion, knowledge sharing, and networking among information technology enthusiasts. I hope all of you are having a good time. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a fruitful conference. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Professor Ahmad Yunus, the Vice Rector for Academic and Student Affairs of Universitas Sebelas Maret. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now it's the time for the keynote speaker session on the second day of the APICS 2022, as we're going to have Associate Professor Naoki Fukuta from Shizuoka University, Japan. And ladies and gentlemen, to make sure the session runs smoothly, I'd like to introduce you all to our dear moderator, Dr. Bambang Harjito. Dr. Bambang Harjito obtained his Ph.D. from Curtin University of Technology, Perth, Australia, and his master's degree also from Australia, from the James Cook University in Townsville. His expertise is in information data security and soft computing. And ladies and gentlemen, currently, he is the head of the Quality Assurance of Communication and Information Technology Department of Universitas Sebelas Maret. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I present you Dr. Bambang Harjito as our moderator. Okay, so we're having technical issue and we're still waiting for Dr. Bambang Harjito. Dr. Bambang, can you hear us here? Please let us know if you have joined back to the Zoom session. Okay. Right. Hello, Dr. Bambang. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I present you Dr. Bambang Harjito as our moderator.
Okay, thanks your time. Honorable Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Universitas Maret, Professor Dr. Ahmad Yunus, MS, and Honorable Chairman Conference, the first international conference of smart technology, applied informatics and engineering department, Informatics Maret, Surakarta. And now, dear all honorable of this participant, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bambang Harjito. I'm as the moderator of today's seminar, and I'm very happy to see you here and welcome all of you to this seminar. Today's seminar is about driving digital transformation towards society 5.0 through a smart technology and artificial intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, and now let's open our meeting by saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, by saying together Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Before we begin, I would like to introduce you to the keynote speaker. There are two keynote speakers, and the first keynote speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Nick Thompson. He is from Business Information Systems School of Management and Marketing, Curtin University. And Professor Nick Thompson will present a paper with the title Security and Privacy Challenge in Smart Society. I will read Prof. Nick Thompson curriculum vitae. Would you like to help me to see the curriculum vitae? Oh, the first one is The first one is not Professor Association Nick Thompson, but the first is Prof. Naoki Fukuda from College of Informatics, Academic Institute, Seisui University, Japan, and Prof. Naoki will present toward as artificial intelligence and IoT-based application for digital industry. You can read the Professor Naoki Faculty curriculum vitae that see in this. And here, I think I will give to Professor Naoki Fukuda. I think it's your time, Professor Naoki Fukuda, to your presence.
Okay, so I'd like to start my talk. Thanks for inviting me. It's a great honor for me to present my talk here. It's a great place. So give me a small moment to start my screen sharing.
Yeah, you can. Please help me to just secret just.
Just started.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
Is this working?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to start my talk. The talk title is Toward an Artificial Intelligence and IoT-based Application for Digital Industry. And actually, I thought what kind of talk I should present for you. And I tried to rearrange the content to fit to the actual focuses for the conference. And I slightly changed the actual presentation materials from this title, and later I will tell you how I adjusted it. And before talking about the talk content, I'd like to say something for myself and something for my university, Fukuda, and I'm working at Hamamatsu campus at Shizuoka University. And where's Hamamatsu? I will show you some maps about that, but in short, in the middle of Japan and an ocean side. The city is having so many international people. Why? Because in our city, we are having really huge industrial communities. And the weather is very nice. As you could see in this picture, especially on these summer days, it's a little bit hot, but it's not too hot and too cold. It's approximately 2 centimeters less hot than Tokyo. And in winter side, it's 2 centimeters less warm, a little warmer than Tokyo. So it's very good. In exception for very exceptional moment. And 2 years ago, in our city, we had the national record on the hottest the temperature. But excluding those exceptions, the city is very good for living as well as good for doing some industrial activities. And here is a map. And here is the campus of us. And where is it? In the city, we're having a lot of famous companies in Japan. One can say So on motorcycle, on cars and motorcycle industry, Suzuki, its headquarters is in Hamamatsu City, and also Yamaha motorcycle is located very close from here, and also here is the one very important city for Honda motor company.
Oh, motor company, Yamaha,
And
Honda.
Yeah. And also this in this area we are having a lot of musical instrument companies like Yamaha, and Kawai piano is also very famous in the field, that has been used for very important concert competitions. And also in our city, we have Roland, which also invented karaoke machines that may be used in various countries. And also in this city, in the city, it's one of very important city for the invention of TV. It may be somewhat surprising. Japan was one of great invention, the country that invented the TV system. And we received IEEE milestone for our campus. And here is Nagoya, which is one very famous city in this region. And it's approximately 100 kilometers from here. And it will take approximately 30 to 40 minutes by taking Shinkansen. And why this is important is because the Toyota Lexus headquarters is across from here. It's close from Nagoya as well as from Hamamatsu. And why this happens is because the Hamamatsu is very close to the hometowns of the founder is the Honda, Soichiro Honda, as well as Sakichi Toyota.
Oh yeah, Honda, Toyota, yes.
Yeah, so this is really heavily doing the industry activities in two regions. And I am not noting the point of that in this map, and also in the very closest place that Toyota is producing its highest brand Lexus cars in near this region.
Wow.
So we could
new
see, when we are driving cars in the roads, we could see a lot of Lexus that they are going to export from various countries. And some told me that most of those Lexus cars has been built in that regions and will be distributed to worldwide.
Yeah.
And sometimes they may use even for airplanes.
Yeah, Indonesia there is, I think.
So why I'm talking about these things is because I'd like to put these two assumptions. And based on that, I'd like to give you some talks about what I and our team have developed in those somewhat long-term research activity. The one assumption is that the digital industry, or say digital industries, will be formed by multiple companies and institutions and other stakeholders. That will not be formed by just a single company. As you can notice, in those car building companies, there are so many small industrial companies who are building very nice parts to be installed for those cars. So why they can build up so nice cars in that area is because they can fully utilize the advantage of building up some nice parts in that area. So actually digital industries will be formed by multiple companies and their corporations. That is one assumption. And another assumption is the use of IoT will naturally be distributed geographically. The IoT device will be installed on anywhere on the Earth, including some some industries also, as well as some, even for some farms. It is widespread in Japan nationwide and also for the worldwide. So why this is important is that because those industry activities has been done on those factories and somewhere, but not on the clouds. Therefore, naturally, those activities as well as those controls of computers will be distributed geographically. And there will be no strict central control because of so huge geographically distributed systems. So when we take those two assumptions, what will happen is that it will not be a centralized optimization. So let's quick overview. I told you where is Hamamatsu, Shizuoka in Japan, and how that is closely related to industrial communities. And in those communities, what kind of goals we can have is, of course, various, but one the important goal can be, how can we assign resources to the, say, users or the participant for the community in a right way? So you can imagine that when the major big company take all advantages and all incomes from small companies, what will happen? Those small companies will just be down and they will be removed from the world. And then, as you can notice that, that means the industrial community will also going to slowly be disappear. And recently, Toyota announced in the news that they just offering about, say, calling them down the cost for those parts, because they noticed it's important to give those small cooperative companies to have enough income for them to keep their community as healthy as possible. In this talk, I'd like to tell you some auction-based techniques to resolve this issue. And then I will show you some actual possible implementations as well as some recently ongoing projects as well. So we'd like to think about a scenario. Here you can see some pictures in our campus. In recent days, unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situation, we could not have this kind of festival in this scale. But in this year, we are going back to have this festival in this scale. And you can see some very pretty nice ones. We call it Shizuki. And when you come to our campus, you can meet this in front of the main administrative people building, as well as the library building. And what is so seriously hard is, that is also from my personal experience, when we would employ these things in the campus, it's very hard for us, because even in November, when we go into those say small devices, it's a little bit very hot, even in November. So after working with those tasks, what we would think is, oh, it's so hard. I'd like to have some drinks and take a rest in some good place. But also we should think about some cost issues, because of course my income is limited, and how much money we can spend for single day is also limited. So just I'd like to take a good booking for reasonable place to stay, as well as buying some reasonable drinks as well. But in some cases, because those resources cannot be shared to so many, so imagine that can we share the hotel room for a single hotel room for 100 of people? It's hard. What is happening is because some resources can't be shared by multiple attendees or users. The same can be said for the links. Of course, we can share some links, but in the ways of sharing is just putting those in different glasses and share it. But we don't want to say reuse some already ranked links to others. Okay, so inevitably those resources can't be shared. So therefore, the good resource allocation issue is really very important. So the actual talk content for today will be something like this. How can we assign resource to the users, participants, the members in the communities in a right way on intelligent application for digital industry and more. So the question, only one person can buy and eat this. How can we decide who should be the owner of this meal? Ask a ninja to get it. In Japan, we could see some ninjas in somewhere, surprisingly. I've taken this picture at the nearest airport, the Centralia, in some years ago, and don't surprise about that. It's usual in Japan. But we don't want to say, go ninja, go meet my meal, get my meal. No. We don't want to have some conflict with others. So then one possible way will be auctions. Also, another way is just a fast come, fast take basis. But here we'd like to think this scenario. And this is very simple auction scenario. So you could see some bids here. And here is the highest bid. So this person can buy this item here. Why this is good is because it is efficient. Say the most wanted person can have item by paying the sufficient amount of compensations for it. Okay. So by auctions. So auctioning is very nice, but at the same moment, we can imagine that when the items are geographically provided for geographically limited region, then the thinking is somewhat more easy. But even for the parts distribution supplies, we can buy those parts worldwide. And imagine, we already have a lot of auction market on the internet. we have to see which items are sold in where and when we can buy, and those prices are always changing. How can we manage it? It's one of great issues. In those, at least in my understanding, in those 20 years of those world. So we'd like to think this. Why don't you use some intelligent robot? Yeah. Approximately 30 years ago, Professor René Etzoni, who is a professor now in the company, but at that moment, professor on ISI in the United States, he told us the very impressive talks and essays to the AI community. The name is Intelligence Without Robots. The software robot will also be the future in the robot. Even 30 years ago, the researchers thought this can be. So it's okay. But what is so difficult is that actually we'd like to deploy a lot of robots, not a single one. So just having single intelligent entity is not enough. So how can we implement such cooperative, intelligent software, we call them agents, to the world is a great issue. Even from 30 years old. So we and the community in the multi-agent systems are working very hard, continuously very hard to realize such a world. And as you already noticed, some of the technology has already been deployed to the world silently on the background of our society. And for me, for our case, I built up my own platform to realize such an intelligent software robot. That means mixing about AI and IoT and software robots. How it will be. I built mild and mobile agent platform that runs even the small IoT devices. Actually, even on my desks, this mild can run on my own Raspberry Pi or Jetson Nano. And but for today, I've taken a small movie for that. And later, if you prefer to have some real-time demonstration, I can show you. And here we see some short programs that were written in Prolog as a logic programming language. And then run the program. This small window has its own program, and it's jumping to another computer. Here we are seeing how the program is running on another computer by remote views. And then it goes back to the home computer. And this may not be surprising for you because in the current IT field, we are already using the similar techniques for server-side computation. That calls on live migration of servers. But the exactly same idea has already been developed, even in the end of last century. And just I've started the development of this platform on the end of the last century. And most of those build has been finished in the 2002. It is just 20 years ago. So it may be somewhat surprising for you because those techniques may take time to be distributed to all over the world. And where it has been used? Actually, we developed something I already told to you, the bidding mode system. It's a prototype implementation that realized the cooperative monitoring and bidding for online auction site. And actually, I demonstrated this to one awarded AI top researchers, Professor Descriptive at CMU in cooperation with my supervisor, Thomas Sintani. And actually, I demonstrated how a small software can jump onto the computer running in the United States from Japan, and then monitor some internet auction site and actually try to buy them. And then if everything has been done, then go back to here. Even now, we are having some great latencies on the internet connection. And you can notice that this latency is very serious on very hardly competitive auctions. Who can first bid for them in the same price is very important. To overcome this issue, the physical limitation issues, I implemented this bidding for system using these margin facilities that can allow a software to jump onto another computer, even running on another countries. How it will work? It is like this. And for those agent software, they are actively monitoring so each site and checking about the price changes. And because we need some cooperation mechanisms, and at that moment, completely distributed control without no central control was a bit risky. So we put a coordinator for those agents, but mostly those controls will be done by each software, and only the coordinator is keeping the monitoring of those agents and allowing them to bid for those items. And also, we can utilize this system by using the standard web browsers, because for each agent that can have some facilities to give us some web-based user interface as well. And these frameworks has already been developed in those days. That may be somewhat surprising. And actually, this work has been cited and the most cited work for me. And some says, and for recent years, what is this? Yes, I'm doing some works on auctions and other areas, but still someone is seeing this work. So I shortly introduce this work, even that is a little bit old work for us. However, doing such works is not so easy. As you can imagine, when we are debugging those softwares, sometimes we have to place some bid for some items, and sometimes it will cost to buy that items. But because of some limitations, the universities cannot pay all of those payments for buying some items. They say, oh, you're just buying your personal items, you should pay for it. So therefore, now I don't continue developing those, the last layer to actually place some bids to actual auction site. But the underlying mechanisms can work with even now. Anyway, we can utilize these auctions. And if we have some difficulties on deploying those auctions because of too much items all over the world. We can also utilize some intelligent software. And at least on the laboratory level, we can make some very good cooperations among those softwares. So this can be applied for large amount of actual digital industries, we believe. A question. Sometimes we'd like to split some items. This means we can think about the amount of items also. And we call it multi-unit auctions. So when we think not just a single item, but some items which have some amount. For example, we have 15 parts to be installed for some cards. We can allocate those items according to the price as well as the need for the number of items. In this way, and here, this user is going to buy this item A, the one item A in this price, and this bidder would like to have this item in this price, but this price is higher than here. And the number of items we are having is now 3. Yeah, this says we have 3 stocks for these items. So we can allocate these items to these 2 bidders in this way. And you could notice that when we are doing these things, the computation for those optimal assignments will be very hard. And some theoretical background has been summarized in Crampton's books. So if you are interested in these background theories, please see the books published by Crampton. But here we also have the assumption. On each unit, we can share it. So say the single part cannot be installed to multiple cards, and so on. And more complicated cases. A combination of items. Sometimes we need to buy a combination of items, the things. If you'd like to have Japanese ramen noodle with a water, because its taste is so strong, it should be nice to have some drinking as well. So we think if we can have ramen noodle and water, then I'd like to buy. But when just for water, no thank you. We can represent those needs by using combinatorial bidding for those items like this. So in this case, this bidder is going to have the item B and item C in this price, but not want to have each separate item. And of course, in these cases, some bidders would like to have just one item. So we can mix those combination bids for single large-scale auctions. And also in the auction side, we are auctioning a lot of items. And to do so, we need to have the very hard optimization of those allocations. And that has been called NP hard issues. And in this case, the allocation will be like this. So sometimes the allocation will be done for limited users. How can we resolve this issue? This optimization is very hard. And approximately 15 to 10 years ago, I was working very hard with Professor Ito, who is now a professor in Kyoto University. We did something in the domain. How did we realize it? We employed a parallel greedy local searching approximation. When we employ a good randomization on those searching process, its performance is very nice. And even now, to my best knowledge, there is now no record breakers for my own ideas. And this can also be applied for various purposes because its allocation is very fast and it can employ a really huge amount of bits within a short minutes. And here I see some small numbers, but don't worry, just we could see it. In short, at the moment we are developing these ideas. The fastest one was Jules's work, where the group combined some techniques on mixed integer optimization techniques as well. And one of very famous optimizer solvers in the area is Sebelas. Our own idea runs much faster, approximately 4 or 5 times faster, and its optimality is as good as the best one, or even better. But what is important is that we assume they are telling the truth to us on the auction, but sometimes it happens. So say, do you seriously need electricity now? When you're in a train, imagine you're in Shinkansen in Japan and you are using your laptop to finishing up your slides to be presented in the talk in 2 hours later. In such case, we'd like to seriously need some electricity. But sometimes you say, oh, we have the full battery charging, but it's better to have electricity to avoid some risks. But we just say, I don't seriously need electricity now. Sometimes humans say not true needs for us. And think, when we gather some information about their needs and they contained a lot of errors, the result of those optimization will be far from the optimal result with the true values for those needs. That is so serious issue. And in these cases, we also think the strategies for other strategies. Okay, some others is going to take this electricity power plug, then it's better to just avoid stealing my charging point by others. And we are always thinking about how others will have some strategies and respond to that. But that is really time-consuming because the opponent is also thinking about how, so for example, I'm having some strategies about thinking about their strategies. So we can notice that we have infinite loop. So the great professor, the Professor David Parks and Stanford University often told me that it's nightmare. It's time confusing. It's inefficient. We should stop it. But just realizing the world, telling the truth and doing honestly will be the best for our strategy. In recent years, at least in recent 15 years and so on, we multi-agent communities are having some cooperation to some economics people to realizing some good ideas as well as some theoretical results in this domain. And they call, we call it mechanism design, or in some case, market design. In the field, we are discussing about how we can realizing truth-telling world will be the best for each. We call it truth through mechanism, or in some case, strategy proofness. This means we don't have to have serious strategies thinking about others are having some strategies for well. And we also discussed some important properties about that. One is externality. The payment price will be decided only from the other bidder's bid. This says, just you say your preference is okay, and the price will be decided outside from your preference. Therefore, we can realize even when I say, oh, I can say $100 for this meal, but if there is no bidding for that meal, then you can just take it with just $10 and so on. And also monotonicity, just cheating about telling the lower price for the bidding will just have loss of chances, but no merit. And also individual rationality is very important. Joining to such auction will give you no disadvantage, okay? And also efficiency. The most wanted people can take those items. And in theory, we cannot fully realize those important properties at once, especially on those very complicated situations. So we need to make some good approximations to fulfill those important key properties as much as possible. And one, I can say, traditional approach for realizing this is second price auction. Some of you already know about this. And the auction is somewhat different from the ordinary auction. In this case, this bidder is placing the highest bid, yes. So this bidder can take this on $20, no. The actual payment will be this, 18. So there is no advantages on just putting this price or lower price, and it's safe to put the much higher price for it, because the actual payment will be decided by the competition by others. not directly by the bidding price. So in this second price auction, in strictly speaking, sealed one-shot second price auction, we can guarantee the truthfulness of the auction. The great. But the pricing with VCC is somewhat complicated. Don't worry about those mathematical notions. What they are doing with that, when we think about your payment were not in the world, what will happen? On the differences about how your bid will affect to the world will be the actual payment. Here we could see the chart. Here is the all bid prices, and this part is the beta A's bid price. And actual payment will be here. When we have the world without beta A, how the sum of winners bid price will be like this, and this difference will be the payment. So this can be realized even for very complicated cases. But actually, in theory, it's very hard to be realized. So we implemented some approximation mechanism for it. And later, I'm having some detail in the slide. And because of time, I may skip some of those details. If you are interested in some of those details, then just ask me later, and I can give you some more details.
Okay.
And one issue is about allocating these items is feasibility. And when we think there is a single auction, then such truthful auction will work. But in approximately 20 years ago, Professor Parks found when we have 2 or more auctions in the world, even when we are deploying those truthful auctions, the property of truthfulness will be broken down. Oh no. And as you can notice that, even at this moment, we cannot unite the world into a single country. So, because I don't say it's not what it's not it's not bad things, because we can keep our cultures and we can have our independence, and we can have the control for our community by ourselves. But it also says, unfortunately, we cannot have truthful auction in the world. So Professor Park says, VCG is disaster. Once they told us, that will be very nice. But later we found it's hard to be implemented. And in the real world, it's not. And some pragmatic approach has already been deployed. One of my very famous one is ad auction. It's employed on Google and other companies. And you could see some good papers, including this relevant paper in approximately 15 years ago. They are employing the similar second price auction mechanisms to allocate other places in the search result and any other pages. Actually, this is not truthful auction, but because of their properties, especially on the equilibrium for those bidders, the auction behaves something like truth auction. And yes, we already employ this idea in the world. And at this moment, they are doing this for the cloud-based computing. And what we are trying to do even now is how we can employ these ideas to IoT and the actual industrial fields. Still, we are actively discussing some interest people about how we can deploy it. And even in recent days, we are having some discussions with a Japanese company about how we can deploy this auction mechanism even for the 5G network resource allocation. And what will happen when we place strategy proof mechanisms for these cases? One of the best one that I know even now in this case is Satya that has been developed the Cash and Professor David Parks. Yeah, they are doing very nice. And just simply say what they are doing is that sometimes this happens. Some bidding is somewhat over the limit, and then just we don't see it. They see irony, like irony for our process. But this says, if in case we don't think about those strategy proofness, those additional bidder can take some items. So if we can distribute it, those items for honest people, in some case, we just don't assign some items that are even not allocated for any others. But efficiency is very important. As you could see, even in these recent days in Japan, we are deploying the very limited amount of electricity power plant. Even its margin is less than 10%. So the loss of several percent of efficiency for those important resources are very, really seriously important. So we'd like to make some good efficiency as well. And in our approach, we would do some very good sophisticated parallel search algorithms that will also try to realize features and flavors of strategy proofness as much as possible. And I'd like to say some brief ideas, just skipping those text explanations and these mathematical notions. Yeah, actually go back to this figure. When we compute the actual bidding price, when the old approximation is good, then we can calculate this payment. Okay? But why this is so little bit complicated and difficult to deploy this approximation is that because of the nature of approximation, this happens. Of this beta is the payment price will be higher than the actual bid price. Oh no, what happened? Is this okay? And in some case, this happens. Oh, I will gain some extra payment from the auctioneers. What? The approximation for these optimizations may cause these issues. So we did some tricks on these pricing mechanisms. The idea is just simply that's removing those cases and just taking some recalculation for these cases. And some theoretical analysis has also been provided by other papers. But I will just skip it. And then still, its optimality is very nice compared to just parsing a fast allocation basis and series faster. And also we can employ this reserve price. Let's say for the auctioneers, we don't want to sell these items if when its payment will be less than this, because they are consuming some cost of producing some items. So selling those items in the cost which is less than the actual cost will be so disadvantageous for them. Also, incorporating these mechanisms can be done. I did it on approximately 6 or 7 years ago, and on these projects. And then during these works, we reached further important issues to be discussed. The thing is not about the optimization, not just about optimization problem. Even after we resolve some optimization issues, some of those attendees will not agree about the results. That is so serious issues. Even we could see in politics region, yes, we are having some disagreement about some ways of implementing some social systems and so on. Even in such case, how we can build up the society that we can support, as well as we can agree the things that we are going to do as much as possible. And to realize this society, we and our research teams are developing a very nice systems and techniques that supports the human communications and human negotiations with some intelligence software. We have been doing these activities in Japanese press project, and one of the highest budget Japanese public profiling research grant, and these numbers are divided to approximately 4 professors and working very hard. And even now we are having ongoing the project that inherits some of those efforts. And at this moment, I'm outside from the project and now having some new plans to build up some new projects, but still having actively communicating to those people. And because some results under reviewing and some results mainly will be done by other some group members. I don't say much details about this, but if you are interested in these project details, just search agree. And then you can find some very good videos. And one of them has been awarded in the Ichikai, maybe 2019 video competition. So it's almost time. So I'd like to just say thanks to these collaborators with my work, Professor Takaaki Ito, and now he is in Kyoto University only, and also Professor David Parkes in Harvard University, and many of you who already collaborated with me. So many thanks to listening my talk. Then if you have some questions, then I'd like to have, or then we should be move to another Keynote talk. Then I will just finish my talk and then move to that. Thanks.
Thanks for your talks, Professor Naukri Fogota. It is very interesting. It is not as only you talk about the application of IoT in the digital area, digital industry, but also you can talk about the many applications that can be applied in IoT for the looking for the optimization. Is this right? Yeah. It is, but not only in the optimization, but also in the trust. Yeah. Thanks for your presentation. And before we call the second keynote speaker, okay. I will introduce to the second of keynote speaker. I would like to call Professor Nick Thompson.
Hi everyone.
Hello, Professor Thompson. Yeah, I will introduce for yourselves.
Thank you.
Yeah. Professor Thompson is from Business Information Systems School in Management and Marketing, Curtin University. Just inform to you, Mr. Nick Thompson, I also graduate from the Curtin University.
I know.
Oh, you know me.
Yes.
My supervisor is Vijay Sakarputra.
Vidi, yes, he's
just,
right next door. He's in the next office. That's great.
Yeah, I'm 2010 till 2014. Yeah.
Okay, 2014.
Yeah.
And as you know, we have Echo Harry Pratisto, also supervised by myself and Vidi.
Okay, yeah.
Soon will be doctor.
Okay.
So
okay,
that's
now.
good. Good connection.
You have, because maybe Mr. Harry can success to graduate from your school.
He will, yes. Very close, very close.
Okay. I think it's not, it is your time, I think. You can talk about the security.
Sure can.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me share my screen. So can you see this screen sharing now?
Yeah, I see.
Excellent.
Yeah, I remember.
That was my plan. My plan was I wanted to show you and remind you of our lovely campus and invite you, if you get a chance to come back and visit us. You're most welcome here. Yeah. So a little bit about me. You've already given a great introduction. Thank you for that. So for everyone else, I'm Nick Thompson. I am the head of the Business Information Systems discipline or department, you might call it, here at Curtin. I'm also a senior professional of the Australian Computer Society and a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. So I balance these industry and academic commitments. During this talk, I'm going to refer to a few papers, and I put references in the slides, but also you can just, anyone who's interested in reading more, I've shared all of my work on this website at the bottom. So if any academics want to read it later, then you are most welcome to do so. So a couple of you already know Curtin. For those of you who don't, Curtin University is among the top 1% of universities worldwide. We're quite proud of that. We have campuses, the main campus is in Perth, which is the beautiful picture that I've shared. We also have campuses in Malaysia, Singapore, Dubai, and Mauritius. So some global reach. more close to home, we are the top most popular and preferred university in Western Australia among the 5 public universities. So we have quite a lot of opportunities and things going on. So what I'm going to talk about today are, of course, security and privacy challenges and Smart Society 5.0. And what I'm going to talk about are the human factors and what I call behavioral information security. So it's going to be quite a change from the previous talk that you just heard, which was quite technical in nature. I'm not going to talk about technology. Even though I am a technologist, my PhD is in computer science. Where I work now is about trying to make use of the technology that we already have. And in this area, I'm trying to make people be more safe and maybe more accepting of security technology so that we can use the excellent technology that has already been created for us. So this complements the technical side. But what is Society 5.0? I mean, Society 4.0 was the information age, and really that's still happening. Society 5.0 is where we expect that there will be a greater convergence between the physical and the digital space. So rather than having people going about their lives and information and cloud storage separate from that, the idea is that there'll be a very tight integration between the cyber and the physical realm. What that means from a security point of view is that people will be exposed to even more security threats because everything that we do will be in some way digitized. Now, if I'm being honest, we have not yet solved the security challenges of Society 4.0. Why are we talking about Society 5.0? We have current problems that we have not solved. Well, the good news is that many of the challenges are the same. So the things that we do now, especially if we start thinking about the human factors, which I believe is a very under-researched area, if we understand more about the human factors, then we're in a really good position to embrace Society 5.0. So on that note, like I said, I'm going to be talking about non-technical things, and I'm going to start talking about the psychology of security, so why people make decisions in this way. So my talk is really going to be, well, 3 things I'm going to cover. And I'm not going to assume any prior knowledge in this. Even though we are all experts in our own field, I'm not going to assume that people are experts in behavioral information security. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. And quite quickly, I'm just going to give an introduction to the field, what it really is. And the second thing I'm going to cover is the research methodology that we use in this field. So the most popular research model that we might use. That's the second thing. And the final thing I'm going to cover, and hopefully I have time, is to share with you some research that we conducted in Indonesia, which used this research methodology to understand Indonesian public acceptance of internet filtering. And this was, again, more of a behavioral science study, just to shed light on why people reject technology and security and safety sometimes. So first off, I want to talk about the need for a focus on the human factors in information systems research. Because even though HCI is a field, it's becoming more and more well-established, the emphasis on human factors in security is still lacking. Now, from my own experience, I mentioned I have a technical background in engineering and computer science. So for many years, that was all that I focused on as well. And like many people, I suppose, I started to learn more about how technology fits into society and where that need is. So many of us in this diagram, we would fit into the technology segment. But then as we go out into organizations and industry, I did a lot of consulting. I see how technology fits into the organizations. And then, of course, see that the crucial dimension is, of course, the people. Because technology alone is not really that useful. People need to use it. People need to benefit from it. And so information systems fits squarely in the center of that diagram. So that's a different perspective from computer science, which might only think about technology and really focus on that. So often in the information systems realm, we are trying to learn about how people's perceptions, their experiences, their motivations, even someone's personality or their life experience, how that motivates them to use technology in a certain way. Now, my interest in human-computer interaction actually came from having technical jobs. And like many people, those of you who know Western Australia will know there's a few very big employers in Western Australia. The mining industry is very big here. So many Western Australians, like myself, early in our careers, we get jobs in those kind of industries. So for quite a while, I worked for a company called Rio Tinto, mining giant. They have, I think, 35,000 staff. So it's quite, no surprise that many people end up working there. So as a technologist working for a large organization like this, it was very exciting. We had a very big IT budget. We had very big infrastructure. And Rio Tinto has, you should look at it sometime as a separate out of interest. They have this amazing technology. We talk about autonomous vehicles being a thing of the future. In the mining industry, we've had autonomous vehicles for a very long time. They have trucks that are so big, they don't have people driving them. They're just automatically driving around. So I was excited by the technology. And my perception as a computer scientist was that everything will work great because we have millions of dollars, we have all the technology, surely everything is going to be great. But in reality, that's not the case. And what we soon learn is that people need to use the technology. We need to invest in people. So what we started doing, what sometimes we did, and this was when I was a server administrator there for a while, maintaining systems on mining equipment, and we would sometimes blame the users. If things are going wrong, we would say, oh, the users are, have made a mistake. They've done the wrong thing. And it would be a bit of a joke amongst the IT staff that we would blame users for everything. And, at the time it was perhaps just a bit of harmless joking, but the reality is that the IT professionals need to take responsibility to make systems that the users can really use. So from there, I got into software testing. This is in another mining company, and this is where I developed more interest in human-computer interaction. Because I was overseeing what we call a user acceptance test. So whenever we have software that we're deploying in an organization, especially an organization that is very focused on productivity, there has to be a user acceptance test. So the user will sit down with the software and they will go through a checklist. And only when they say it's okay, that's when we deploy it. Even when we're deploying a very simple app, like a calculator, there still has to be a user acceptance test. Now, as technical people, the way we look at a calculator is functional requirements. What does a calculator need to do? It needs to add numbers together. If it adds numbers together, then I'm happy. Functions. But when we talk to a user, they're not thinking about the functional requirements at all. We sit down with a user and we say, test this app. And they might say, oh, but I'm comfortable with the old software that I had. Why do I need a new one? Or they might say, oh, this icon looks a lot like another software that I have. They might say, oh, I really need to take this home and use it at home. None of these are functional requirements. None of these relate to the technical functionality of the software. But all of these are issues that could threaten the security of an organization. If we think about them in a different perspective, if users start making mistakes, if users start clicking on the wrong things, if users start trying to take things home that they shouldn't, all of these are threats to our security. So from that understanding of human-computer interaction, it became clear that to real scope for research and understanding was in the security realm. So how are these very broad human-computer interaction concerns accommodated into the information security industry? Well, the reality is they're not. And if we look at textbooks, industry presentations, white papers, we look at the dimensions of cybersecurity, they sometimes split it up differently, but this is just an example slide from a company called Fortinet. But if we look at the dimensions of cybersecurity, the HCI is not one of them. They might talk about network security, application security, data security. These are all things that everyone understands. As engineers understand all of these things. But what is missing is designing systems in such a way so that users are already secure without having to do something different from what they would naturally do. The only place in industry literature where users are actually acknowledged is this thing that we call end user education. And that's valuable, yes. We do need to educate users and we need to give people good training. But that's not enough. And also, research has shown that that's not always successful. When we try and deliver security training to people, what we find is that people's security behavior improves for a few weeks or months, and then they just go back to the old way of doing things. And that's because relying on education and training has not accommodated the user into the design process. It's like fixing it at the end. So we've all heard of the trends in cybersecurity, and I don't need to give you any statistics or facts and figures or anything like that, but we know that it's not good news. Even though investment into cybersecurity is larger than ever, skills are greater than ever, technology is better than ever. I must say, even though my talk is not about technology, I'm forever in awe. I'm amazed by the technology that we have. The things that we have now, we wouldn't imagine 5 years ago. But so then why are cybersecurity breaches and issues and problems increasing? If we have all of these great things, we have all of this great technology, all of this funding and so forth. So my position is that the thing that is missing is the design process, the secure design and the understanding of the users to be able to design securely. So what I focus on is just understanding the users. And the idea is that then developers will be able to take this knowledge and design systems in a better way. So what I keep repeating every time I do industry talks or even talks like this, and I put it there in a box, this is my words, is that the traditional approach of throwing more technology and money at the cybersecurity threat simply is not working. Because this is an old idea, and this is an idea that comes from engineers and computer scientists. Like me in the old days, if we have a problem, we throw more technology at it because we love technology. But we need to do a bit different for now because we have seen that this is not actually working the way we want it to. How do we understand users? To understand users, we have to look outside of our little discipline, outside of our comfortable area of technology, and look at different disciplines. So there are many non-IT areas which can help us explain and understand the security and the privacy of users. And we might look at what we call behavioral economics, which is a way of quantifying how people are biased and people tend to make decisions in a certain way. We might look at the psychology of decision-making, which is also called rationality. People are making an assessment between two choices or more. Psychology of risk, or even neuroscience. There is work that shows that different parts of the brain are responsible for different kinds of decision-making functions. Whichever system gets activated will influence the decision that people make. So I'm going to cover all of those. I just wanted to share with you that there are so many different dimensions that we can look at it. But the key is that we have to take a step outside of our discipline and we have to look at the, I guess, well-established research from the other sciences. Because if we look at it on the most fundamental level, security is a trade-off. Security always has a cost. If security didn't have a cost, then everyone would always do things in a secure way. There is actually some reason why people don't behave securely. Security costs money, but it also costs convenience. It also costs time, and even costs our freedoms. So when we say to ourselves, oh, why are the users picking such simple passwords? This is a very common thing, right? People pick passwords that are too simple, and then they get hacked because they don't have a good password. And we say, oh, why don't they have a better password? Let's look at it from the user's perspective. Having a long and complicated password is very difficult. It's very inconvenient and very slow. So maybe the users are making a decision and they think they're making a good decision because they've chosen convenience. They want to do things fast. So we have to understand that there are different perspectives on this same issue. Now, many of these trade-offs and decisions, I mean, I phrased it in the previous one as a cost and benefit analysis. You know, security has a cost, it also has a benefit, and at some point, people will decide where the balance should be. But many of these trade-offs, they're not so simple, but also they're intuitive. We don't realize we're making decisions. We're just acting. When we're interacting on the internet or on some system, we're clicking things, we're doing things, we're typing things. Never do we sit back and say, oh, should I do this? What is the benefit of this action? What is the cost of this action? Because these are subconscious decisions. Now, many of these security trade-offs, these security decisions have existed before the invention of computers. In fact, security decision-making is something that exists in nature. Even animals need to make security decisions, and we don't even understand them yet. So to illustrate that point, I'm going to do something which is going to surprise you, and I'm going to use an example from nature. So my slides now, as you can see, I have these characters are going to explain the cybersecurity decision-making for us. Because we have here some rabbits, and we have a fox, a predator that is watching them. And in case you're wondering, when I'm referring to users or us when we're transacting on the internet, we are the rabbits. Make no mistake about it. Okay? Now, what kind of security decision-making or trade-offs exist in nature? Well, the rabbits need to go and eat. They need some benefit. They need to have food. But if they go to get the food, then they put themselves at risk. Think about it as us. We're going out on the internet to do something. We need that, and we're putting ourselves in a risk. Let's think about the dimensions of that risk that might exist. So one rabbit might be looking at the situation and saying, oh, I can go out there and eat the food because I'm a very big rabbit. If I get attacked, it's not very severe. The threat is not that big for me. So he might be thinking about the severity of the risk. Another rabbit might be looking and saying, oh, I can go and eat the food because I'm a very small rabbit. I'm not vulnerable. I'm never going to be a target. I'm not so important that I will be a target. Another rabbit might look at it and say, oh, I can go and eat the food because I have a good defense. I have a protection against attack. I can run. So all of these, even though we're talking about some rabbits here, I hope you're understanding that what we can think about now is that these are the same decisions, the same dimensions of risk that even humans face. Even when we're talking about a cybersecurity threat, we talk about what is the severity of the threat? What is the vulnerability that I have against that threat? And what is the defense that I have against this threat? Risk severity, we might be talking about in a cyberspace realm, we might be talking about, if I get hacked, how bad will it be for me? Maybe it's not so bad. probability or vulnerability. You might say, oh, you know, some people say, I don't get hacked because I'm not important. Only banks get hacked. Cost of staying secure. Is it convenient? Countermeasure effectiveness. You might say, I have an antivirus software. It's very good. I don't feel scared anymore. So all of these are the same dimensions that I put to you that have existed for thousands of years. These are the dimensions that we have still not accommodated into the design of our systems. So here we have the convergence of the psychology and the information technology perspectives. And the model I'm sharing with you in this slide is called protection motivation theory, and it is from the health sciences. This is a model from the 70s, and it describes how humans make decisions about health-related threats to them. So this is the kind of model that would be used to explain, you know, people smoking or things like that. And in that, there are two assessment processes taking place, or appraisals. One is the appraisal of the threat, and one is the appraisal of how can I respond to it, how can I cope. And so what is the threat, what is my response? And those two big, I guess, appraisal processes influence the behavior of the person. So I find this amazing that we can look at something that exists in nature from so many, you know, just forever, and see that these are on this very fundamental level, this is all we need to really think about when we're trying to understand people. So this is a very popular model nowadays in the information security realm. It's incomplete. There are more things that we need to study, but it's a very good basis for the research. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can extend this kind of model and the methodology that we would apply with a model like this. So when we have a methodology, when we have a model like this, the recommended methodology is to construct a research model, and then for each of the constructs, each of the boxes on the model, we would obtain data, and then we would analyze it using statistical techniques like path modeling. Okay, so in this instance, our focus is on user perceptions as well as behaviors. So it's not just what are the users doing, it's also what does the user think about. We ask the users, what is important to you when you make this, do this decision or do this interaction? So this is quite subjective in a way, and quite daunting or frightening even for the computer science or engineering side, who are trained to only accept objective, pure numbers and scientific data. That is the training that we receive as computer scientists. But now I'm saying, also ask people what they think about, even if it's just someone's subjective opinion, we need to know that as well. Now, surveys are valuable to obtain a large cross-section, and we would analyze these with structural equation modeling. I mentioned the model before. I said it was incomplete, and we can extend it with new constructs and new things. So we would test the model and we would see, why didn't we get perfect results? What is missing from the model? And then how can we extend it further? So I'm not going to dwell on this study too much because this is not the main case study I want to share with you, but just one example of a study which used protection motivation theory. So in this study that I conducted, we had quite a good sample size. That's why I want to share it with you, about 600-ish results. So using that model that we had on the previous page, we surveyed 600 people. We divided into two groups, and they were answering about their behaviors and their perceptions for home computer use and smartphone or mobile device use. The central assumption being, or the assumption, not our assumption, but the assumption that has existed, is that people will behave the same on any device. But what we found is that people's motivations and people's behaviors are different. Even for the same security scenario, if they face the same security threat on a desktop computer or the same security threat on a mobile device, they might behave differently. So this shows us that we need to find out what are the aspects of the human behavior that we have not understood yet, and then we can design systems in a better way. So one thing, for example, that we found in this study is that even the perceived severity, remember, perceived severity is when you ask someone, how dangerous is this? What is the threat that you're facing? And if someone says, this is really hacking is a really serious thing for me, we would expect that if the severity is high, then they're going to behave in a secure way, right? If we're scared of something, then we behave in a way to protect ourselves. But that's not true in all cases. And we found even perceived severity, in some cases it's true, in some cases it's not. So that makes us think about, well, what are we missing from these models? So firstly, how can we extend these models, and what are the gaps? One of the gaps is individual differences. So in the same study, or a related study which was on privacy concerns, we tested the same model, and then we split the sample into males and females group. And we find that the model that was we thought was quite well understood, explained 52% of behavior for males, but only 36% for females. So here we have a situation where we might construct a research model, but it doesn't work for everybody. So now understanding that, we know we need a different research model to accommodate a different group of the population. I'm going through these quite fast, so I want to just keep, so I hope it's not too fast. I want to dwell on something later. These are just some examples. Another dimension might be, what are the user's goals and the user's motivations? We assume that people are motivated by the same things that we are motivated by. If we care about security, we would assume that other people care about security. But that's not true either. So in another study, I revisited this link between privacy concerns and online disclosure. So are people concerned about their privacy, and are they sharing things online on Facebook, for example? And sure, if people say, I really care about my privacy, then those are the same people that do not put a lot of stuff on Facebook. That's not a surprise to us. But then when we studied a different group of people, and we controlled for this, what we call problematic internet use. So some people are addicted to the internet, right? So let's call it internet addiction. We found that this behavior, for the people who are high on the internet addiction measure, their behavior was different, was the opposite. So those people, even if they care about privacy, they will still put things online all the time. Even if they are unhappy about themselves doing it, they don't want to do it, but they can't help it, because they have a different motivation. And the third thing that I want to share on this way of extending these models is the aspect of culture. So in a cross-country analysis, we considered again how privacy concerns influence protective behaviors. And again, yes, there's a link. But then when we conducted this research in collectivist culture, we did this work in Sri Lanka, the strength of the relationship is very different between Australian and Sri Lankan people. So we cannot say that we have created a research model in Australia is good for the whole world. That is the wrong way to do it. We need to do the research in a local context and conduct research with the real users and the real people who are going to be exposed to these threats. So to give an example, a bit more detailed example of how we might do a behavioral study around a technology, I want to share with you some results from some work we did a couple of years, 2 years ago, which was around the public acceptance of internet filtering in Indonesia. And this is an interesting one, because the motivation for the filtering, if you look at it, it can be quite a good motivation. It's there to protect people. But a lot of people will reject these kind of measures. So let's have a little bit of a look at what we found in that study. Now, this is built upon some prior work of mine, which was around government surveillance, not internet filtering, censorship, it was around surveillance, which was, the government is observing the behavior of people. And again, sometimes the government has a good reason for that, maybe preventing crime. But we find that people don't understand these motivations and will have a resistance, sometimes a resistance to these measures. Now, why is this important? Well, it's very closely linked to what I was talking about in the broader security space, is that if we are trying to put measures in place for security or safety, whether we're a government or an individual or a company, if people are just going to reject them and fight against it, then we are never going to be able to implement what we want to implement. So understanding why are the users resisting is a very valuable thing. So in our work on government surveillance, we found that privacy concerns were not always influential. And this is surprising because we thought if people don't want to be watched, don't want to be observed, if they care about their privacy, maybe they will be more resistant. But we didn't find that. What we found was that cultural differences are very strongly influential. So the acceptance of these things is a very localized phenomenon. Now, the internet has been described as a great equalizer, and everyone is the same on the internet. But what we have found is that that's what the internet has brought is simply a new way of engaging in old practices. So the internet and online e-government, things like that, are not a completely new environment. What we have is the same environment, the same local culture, but just digitized. So the case for conducting this work in Indonesia, part of it was convenience as well. I had Indonesian contacts who could do data collection. But also it was interesting because when people talk about internet filtering globally, China is the country that comes to mind because they have very restrictive internet filtering. And what we know is that Indonesia has some of those mechanisms from the early efforts that China would have had. There's some advanced censorship mechanisms, one called Cyberdrone 9. ISPs are required to filter internet sites. By the way, that's also the case in Australia. A lot of people don't know that. In Australia also, there is a list of forbidden websites, and all internet providers must block that list from the public. So we have it here as well. I think the UK has it. There's also some legislation, restrictive legislation that was enacted around that. So around 2 years ago, there was a feeling that maybe people might be noticing this more. So it might be a good time to understand what are people's concerns in this country. Now, prior work in this area has been limited to descriptive data. When you do a survey with just descriptive data, it's just saying, oh, this many people agree with this many people don't agree. But it didn't explore the causality. And we are interested in causality. Is this belief changing this belief? Is this causing this to happen? So if someone is concerned about their privacy, is that why they're rejecting the government's measures? So what we wanted to do was understand the causal links. And so what our central research question was, what are the influences on public attitudes and acceptance of censorship? And also, does that lead to people using tools to bypass the censorship? Because there are tools that we have access to. So the constructs that we studied, firstly, the awareness of filtering is whether somebody has experienced internet filtering in their day-to-day life. Do they know about it? If they don't know about it, maybe they don't have a belief about it. Perceived need for filtering is a perception that individuals have of the need of restrictions. So this is a very valuable one, because if people can associate a need with a behavior, then they're accepting of it. So when I ask people, even in Australia, I ask people, do you accept that the internet is filtered or censored in Australia? People immediately say no. Oh, it shouldn't be censored. And then I say, but you know, the sites that are censored are dangerous, that the things that we shouldn't be accessing, then people will say, oh, okay, I didn't realize it's to protect us. So, certain kinds of materials. Uncertainty avoidance is a cultural dimension, and this is the degree to which an individual can manage unexpected situations. So some cultures do not like unexpected situations. So the theory behind this is that these are the people who will like more rules because there's more structure. Descriptive norms is another one which we believe would be very strongly influential in Indonesia, because descriptive norms or social norms are people's beliefs about other people's support. So instead of saying to someone, what do you think about this? It's like saying, what does your family think about this? What do your parents think about this? And from our discussions and understanding of the culture, we expected that this is more important in a country like Indonesia, who are typically more family-focused and concerned with the community, as opposed to Western countries who tend to be more separate individual. Other constructs, of course, the attitude is our acceptance. I say our, I mean the respondents. Simply whether they accept it. Personal consequences are whether they believe there is a negative impact to them. And finally, an objective measure is whether they are using some tools to escape the filtered list of websites or social media. This is just a list of what they might be using. So here's what the research model would look like. Just like the protection motivation model that I showed before, this is one around acceptance of internet filtering. We have these constructs that are based on our understanding of the users, and then we will gather data on those and then do path modeling with structural equation modeling to see what the links are. It's the sort of thing that would be done with a survey. This was done among Indonesian internet users. I'm just going to quickly go through the results, and for each one, I'm going to give a little two-line explanation of that finding, because even something like this there's a lot to explore, even in a small study. So 4 hypotheses were supported and 2 were not. So let's look at the non-significant ones first. I'm often more interested in the non-significant hypothesis because it gives me more questions. If I hypothesize something, if I believe something to be true and then I test it and it's not true, well, then I know that there needs to be more work done. So firstly, people's awareness or prior experience of censorship and filtering does not influence whether they accept it. We thought that if people are constantly facing this thing, they might start to reject it. They might get frustrated and start to reject it. That was not what we found. We also surprisingly found that the awareness level was very high, much higher than previous work. So almost 2/3 of the people, when we surveyed them, they said, yeah, there has been a time when I've tried to access something and I've been told I'm not allowed to access. It's quite a lot, 2/3. So what we believe is that this has become normalized. Now that so many people have experienced filtering, it's normal. So no longer are people going to reject it for that reason. People's attitude, this is a very surprising one. People's attitude did not predict whether they try and bypass the tools. So if someone says, oh, I really hate internet filtering, we find those people still don't do anything about it. They still don't try and avoid the internet filtering. And our explanation for this, there's 2. One is, of course, that those people, there are legal reasons why people should not evade the internet filtering. We're not saying you should do it. It's illegal to do it, right? So people might have understood that and for that reason, they are not trying to circumvent these things. Another angle is, what are the real, we call these gratifications, the real reasons why people are using the internet. Some people are using it for news, some people are using it for entertainment, some people are using it for work. So the motivations are different in the different contexts. Now on to the significant ones. So I've only got a couple more slides, so we're almost done. So we'll probably be okay for time. So even though attitude didn't influence the use of circumvention tools, people's privacy concerns or personal consequences did. So it's not just the general view about internet filtering that has an effect, that doesn't have an effect. It's the personal view on their own individual needs and the goals that they are trying to achieve. So that was interesting, and also is linked with our previous idea for future work. In line with prior work on surveillance, if the respondents can associate the filtering with a particular use case, then the acceptance is high. If we tell people, oh, the internet is filtered, they don't like it. If we tell them the internet is filtered because we are stopping terrorists from communicating, or we are stopping this, then people will accept it because they will understand the reason for this measure. So the use case needs to be communicated to the people. And now I'm talking about governments here, but this works in an organization as well. We are putting some measures in, we tell people why. Cultural factors have a strong role here as well. And internet censorship or internet filtering can be perceived as reducing exposure to unexpected things. So people who are high in this uncertainty avoidance, so Indonesian respondents tend to be of this cultural characteristic of avoiding uncertainty. This factor is very strongly influential. And finally, the social norms. This was the strongest predictor of attitude. And this is amazing in a way, because we have all of these technical things, and the strongest influence on someone's behavior is nothing technical at all. The strongest influence is, what do people think about their family and friends and their views? And this I must add, this link only exists in the culture that we are studying. This link will not exist if the research is conducted in a Western society. The model will come out differently. So there are different motivations, and these are very beneficial to know. We can help people more if we understand what are their own motivations, their own culture. So governments, organizations have the capacity for much more broad security measures, but in some cases, these can be met with resistance from the public. If our goal is to guide users to make the safest choice, that is our goal, not to control, but to make people safe, then understanding the motivations of the users and why they are behaving in a certain way is a critical first step. We cannot design systems that will be used successfully if we don't understand the people first. So in this instance, we found that experience and knowledge of censorship don't actually play a role. So the things that we thought would play a role did not. But what we found is that the significant others, the peer group, social norms, family, the cultural dimension have the strongest influence in this context. So how do we fit that into the big picture of security? Well, this case study considered a very broad societal effect around security and privacy, because that would be relevant to Smart Society 5.0. But this same methodology can be used to study individual decisions, maybe smartphone security, information sharing on social media. We can also apply the cultural studies, and I believe that the cultural studies are one of the biggest areas that need to be worked on in future work. We can apply these cultural studies to subcultures. Instead of national cultures, we can apply it to organizational culture. So a company or an organization will have their own culture. and their own social conditions. So we might understand how are people interacting in this organization and how can we make them behave in a way that we think is appropriate. So to summarize, finally, to wrap up my talk, today I've discussed a few of the new and emerging areas in the security and privacy research space. And they're very much new and emerging because we're taking a non-technical view of a very technical problem. Right? We're bringing in knowledge from psychology now to try and improve our understanding of technology. So we can couple these research methodologies with practical applications like user observations, training, and gain a deeper insight. If we link these together, then the technologists and the designers can build systems that are much more secure by design. So ultimately, the outcomes from behavioral information security research have the potential to increase the overall security of people while being completely effortless to the users. And that is the ultimate goal, where people can be safer and more secure, but they never need to do anything different from what is natural to them. That's the end of my talk, and thank you very much for your attention. Oh, you're still on mute. I can't hear you. Yes. Still muted.
I note that your presentation is talk about the security and privacy, focus on the human. Yeah, human. I mean,
Yes.
not only about the network security, not only about the information security and operator security, but the end of the user.
Absolutely.
Because the first I think if you talk about the network security and information security, so there are many competition. Because in network security, you use a cryptography, something like that. But it's different. It's really different. Yeah.
It's huge, isn't it? It's such a big area. We can never, we can never understand fully.
But it's very interesting. But okay. And now, thanks for all the presentation for Prof. Nick from Naoki from Japan. And now we are coming to the opinion and question and answer session. There will be 2 sessions and each session for 2 questions. Before that, please raise your hand and don't forget to mention your name for the audience in this seminar. We wait for the question and maybe the question, because I think I know there are two difference upon your keynote speaker, but it's supporting together. The Prof. Naoki Fokota is talk about like talk about the competition and how to looking for the optimization. And together about the trust. And Prof. Thompson is about the human, human behavior. And I not about the intention. Yeah, about the security intention and to the security behavior. Yeah. Okay. I wait your question? Please raise your hand. Please raise your hand if you have question. I think the audience is smart. I think it's, supporting each other, both of you, because first, Professor Naoki Fukuta is about towards an artificial intelligence IoT-based application for digital industry. It is like an intelligent IoT based on application for industry.
Okay, check.
Yeah.
I have a question
Yeah.
for Professor Fukuta, Mr. Bambang.
Yeah, please.
Lately in Indonesia, intelligent agent has been misused. And the most cases nowadays are using the intelligent agent as trading robot for binary option. The binary options sends different result to the bidding client because the result from the server has been manipulated. From the above, I would like to question to Mr. Fukuta, how we maintain the result integrity that sent to every bidding client and avoiding man-in-the-middle attack. Okay, that's my question for Prof. Fukuta, Mr. Bambang. Thank you very much.
Okay, please, Mr. Fukuta, how the maintain about binary option? Do you know about binary option?
So actually, I'm not doing binary options, but in general, there are a lot of risks on employing some intelligent agents to this field. Of course, in some case, these agents may be attacked by the use of middle person attack. That means the actually intended information of bidding will not be sent to the action market. And in some cases, those agents may be hacked by others and they taken by some others for the control. And that is not the all risks on those situations. And actually, in our community, we are also discussing about the risks about joint behavior of those intelligent facilities. We can remember in approximately 15 years ago, we had very hard economic shocks, Lehman shocks. And some say that we had some unexpected crash on the entity of intelligent facilities that are employed in the market. At this moment, we are not sure how they employed actually, but some researchers mentioned the possibility about those overruns or some wrong interactions among those. So if in case we are fully employing, fully doing those markets by our human beings, they may not be happened. Some say based on the analysis on the movement of those prices that might be happened. And actually, at the time of developing the bidding model system on the early this century, with some researchers are already discussing about the risks about that. So to remove such risks, we are also actively working about how we can maintain some mechanisms that are safe for such issues. Is this is this could be an answer to your question? Is maybe okay?
What about Mr. Safi? It's clear? Mr. Safi?
Okay. Yes, I think it's good enough, Mr. Bambang.
Okay. It's a binary option like a software, but to decide win or lose in Indonesia. Yeah. There is a question again. Please raise hand if you have a question. Or maybe talk about how a behavior the person that choose the binary option. Okay, for the Septiano Galan Prakoso.
Yes.
Please where are you from? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bambang. My name is Septiano Galan Prakoso. I'm from FISIP, Universitas Sebelas Maret, but currently I'm in Taiwan. So I would like to, tugas belajar, Pak.
Study abroad.
Yes, study abroad. So for this occasion, thank you very much for the opportunity to ask questions. Actually, I would like to ask question for both of the speakers. What are insightful material that I can get from both of the material for Professor Thompson and also Fukuda Sensei? The first question is actually I would like to direct to Fukuda Sensei about your material, about your presentations. It's very interesting. Since actually I'm not a science tech person myself, I'm from social background, international relations in particular. But following your talk about towards an artificial intelligence and IoT-based application for digital industry, especially from Japan experience, I can't help but wondering, and I'm sorry before, pardon me for this question that might be not that science oriented, but I just want to ask, you also mentioned an element of trust in the automated bidding and optimization for the bidding in digital industry. I've heard this concept of Japanese culture, the Shudan Isiki, the Uchito Soto mentality. So if we are based the choice of behavior on the automated bidding, or maybe the use of artificial intelligence, the automated mechanism of this kind of interaction, how does it impacts the society in Japan particularly? Because I see that Japanese people are a very close-knit group, that a very strong solidarity towards the community. When they are doing things like when the artificial intelligence applied to these kind of things, does it mean they try to eliminate the uchi part of the society, or how? I just want to know your opinion, Professor. Thank you very much. And my second question is for Professor Thompson, and it's also an overwhelmingly great knowledge or insight for me to know that basically there is also an element of uncertainty, avoidance, and so forth. But I can't just help but wondering about the security and also the challenges that comes to our society right now. Is also maybe this actually just like what I just want to seek your opinion and confirmation about this kind of issue. Is basically the answer of all of this threat is just to increase the digital literacy towards the people. If we talk about people, because you talk about human, Professor, and I can't help but relate this to the experience of my research. If you talk about human, and in this case, from the perspective of engineers, the human is users. So shouldn't we just like basically also empower the users? And I'm no computer engineer, but based on the experience, our Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Kominfo, already applied a certain kind of program called Cyberkreasi. So basically, this is kind of like a program of webinars, series of webinars throughout Indonesia, and covering all parts of technology and also security challenges included inside of it. So there are 4 pillars: the culture, skills, and also security and values. And basically, the part of the security thing is not because people are not aware of it, but it's because maybe they just don't know. So maybe also the socialization term or the dissemination of this cybersecurity knowledge should also be spread to people as a means to increase their digital literacy. What kind of thoughts you have about that, Professor? Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, time for yours for Noveti to answer the question, and then continue to Professor Nick Thompson. It's your time.
Okay, so for the answer for the first question, first of all, I agree with you. Just implementing some optimization as a software and as a technique is not enough. Some case, people cannot accept those results because of various reasons. Actually, I'm now actively working with medical field people to incorporate some optimized allocation mechanisms for giving cares for elder people. And the central discussion about that is not on the technical issue, but how we can cooperate with those people who are actually working and managing on those places, and how they can accept those computed results, and how they can manage and manipulate the result to fit to the actual situation they are having. So therefore, in the very latter part, I shortly introduced about my past project that was about how we can integrate our AI techniques to make the good or a certain level of agreement with us to give the people having a good chance to making the right or at least acceptable decisions for them using such AI-based techniques. So I completely agree with you. So just resolving the technical issues is not enough. And focuses are rather very social issues and how our society can accept those techniques, and even how we can improve our understanding about how we can fully utilize those techniques also. Is this a good answer for you?
Yes, Professor, thank you very much.
It's not only about the technology, but about the social. Now, that's time for Master Nick Thompson to your times.
Thank you, and thanks for that question. It's a very insightful question, and it is one that deserves proper thought. And let's start with the good side of it. I mean, the initiatives that you described around digital literacy and those 4 pillars, I think that's very valuable, and that's very commendable that this is being done. And I would like to hear about things like this. So digital literacy and just day-to-day competencies, that is an enduring issue of society that people are faced. People are expected to use technology and never given any training on it. We buy a new device. Now you buy a new phone. You don't get a user manual with the phone anymore. People the vendors expect that everyone knows how to use it. So that is an enduring issue, and one which should be addressed. So there's that aspect. There is also the aspect that perhaps more than just digital competencies, but then maybe online safety should be included in that as part of those core skills that everyone, kids from a young age, as they're brought up, that should be part of their, and they're shown how do you cross the road, don't talk to strangers, all of these things that we teach our kids. Then we should also teach them more about the online dangers. So yes, that is very good and needed dimension. At the same time, I believe that is not enough in itself, because what we have found is that security education, and when we have conducted security education campaigns in organizations. So I'll give you what we do sometimes in an organization. We will do like a simulated, like a phishing attack. We will send an email to the staff and find out who is falling for it, who are clicking on the links when they shouldn't. You can get real data like this. And what we find is that we do that to get an idea of what is the security behavior in this company. And then we deliver some security training, targeted training to the people, improving their digital competencies. And we find that the security behavior goes up. That's no surprise. But the surprise is that you come back to the same organization in 2 months, 3 months' time, they're back to where they were. They go back to exactly where they were. Their old habits always come back. So unless we are training people all the time, what we find is that the training on its own isn't enough. So at the same time as doing the training, we also have to think about how can we design the systems. If we know that people are going to go back to their old ways of doing things, how can we make it that those old ways are also safe? Those old ways are also secure. So instead of trying to change the users, let's change the systems. So if we know that people tend to make the same kind of mistake when using a software, let's fix the software. Okay, rather than telling everyone, oh, don't click that, it's the wrong thing to click. So I'm trying to take a design perspective as well. And I think that's where the future is, alongside. So of equal importance as the training is the design. So these two things alone, these two things combined, I think we'll have a much safer society. But that's a very, very great perspective and good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
This is the first session. Let's continue to the second session. I would like to have to audience, to people, our listener, please raise your hand if you have question. We wait. It is interesting. What two is combined together, I think. Connected together. Yeah. Please raise hand if you have question. Oh yeah, from Salsabila. Please, Salsabila.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Salsabila Fitria, and I'm currently as a final year student of Informatics Engineering of Vocational School at Sebelas Maret University. And my basic questions I would like to ask to Professor Thompson, which I thought that your research is very interesting for me. So, which about this is about recognizing user behavior, which your research is about the human factors and behavior information security challenge itself, which it is very relevant with all the current situation in the worldwide. And so the question is, maybe this is out of the box or out of this research, but the things that I'm interested in, what makes you interested to do a research about the security and privacy challenges in Smart Society 5.0.
What is my question?
So the question is, what makes Professor Thompson interested to do a research about the security and privacy challenges in Smart Society, which it is about the human factors and behavior information security challenge, which I think that the behavior of human itself is a fundamental things to us could build a very, very smart society 5.0 transformations.
Okay. That's your time for.
Thank you. If I understand I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but if it is just around the general motivation for behavioral studies in this area, it just came from, as I mentioned, I had a computer science engineering background. That's where my training was, and typically, you know, when you get a PhD in something, you feel like that's the key to everything. I have a PhD and I can solve every problem with this now, because, you know, part of having this qualification is, you know, become a world expert in that particular area. And I was, I suppose, humbled and surprised to discover that there are challenges that I could see around that could not be solved by what I already knew. And so I look for, and as scientists do, we look for, okay, if this what I'm doing is not working, I will change my view and accept a different hypothesis. So now the feeling is that the behavioral side, and especially as when we talk about Smart Society 5.0, this greater integration of the physical world and the cyber world, this close linking. Everyone is wearing a wearable device now. Everyone is carrying a mobile now. This link between individual people and digitization is becoming very blurred. So I think it's the future of technology is becoming so personal for us that as technical experts also need to understand people in order to be good at what we want to achieve in technology. So that's the motivation for it, if that was the what you were inquiring about.
Okay, I hope you understand. To Salsabila. Yeah. Hello.
Okay, thank you so much for the answers.
Okay. There is any question, and please press hand. Yeah. This from Fendi Achipurnama. So it's time for you to make question.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bambang Harjito. And this question for Professor Nick Thompson. And my name is Fendi Achipurnama. I'm from Informatics Engineering, Vocational School of Sebelas Maret University. Now we are developing flood early warning equipment. In my question is related to the development of Society 5.0. Who is the role of Society 5.0 for
Oh, it's a problem with a connection.
or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Who is the role of Society 5.0 for disaster management in Indonesia, especially floods, so that the community is aware of the disaster? You know that the Indonesian people, if the flood has not reached the height of the level, is still normal activity. On the role for Society for 5.0. Thank you.
It's about, okay, let's answer. Last time your Prof. Nick Thompson, your answer.
Thanks. So the need for early warning systems is definitely great. Thanks for that, Fendi. I think with all kinds of instrumentation, IoT, whenever we have equipment and giving people information, another challenge is whether the people respond to that information. So that is the thing. So we have the technical challenge, which is a distributed systems IoT challenge, which Professor Fukuta could explain much better than me.
Okay.
And then we have this. What can we do to ensure that people understand this information and respond to it appropriately? And I think those are two things that need to be done in parallel. I think there is no easy answer, if I must admit. What we would need to do is understand in the particular environment, the local context. We need to understand what motivates people in that context. Okay, so if I look at a particular group of people, some people would only take their advice from a particular person in the town or the village, or some authority, whereas some other people in a different context might be willing to accept instructions from a computer. We might find that there are some people, some cultures, who don't like to accept orders from a machine. So an early warning system telling them, do this, there's a flood, they're not going to care about it. So this is a very simple answer to a very complicated question, I understand. But we need to find where are people getting their information from in this society. Ask people, where do you get your information from? Who teaches you, who tells you? And then make sure that is part of the design. So then the information from the early warning system goes through that mechanism. So simply putting a dashboard on a web page is not the full solution. That's all I have for that. That we need more knowledge to be able to answer.
It's enough? You understand? Thank you. Okay. So I think if there is the question again, yeah, we open again. Please raise hand if you have question. Maybe this is the third session for the question. Please raise your hand if you have question from the audience. Ladies and gentlemen. No more question?
I have question.
No more question, or still have question on the audience?
So, Mr. Bambang, can I have question?
Yes. Nurul Firdaus, yeah.
Sorry, because I am in the room.
Oh. Please, for Nurul Firdaus, for your answer, for your question.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, because I'm in the room, so the voice is not good. So I have question for Sensei, Prof. Naoki Fukuta and Prof. Nick Thompson. Before that, my name is Nurul Firdaus from Universitas Sebelas Maret. I want to ask to both of you about your future research after pandemic, COVID pandemic will be. Thank you.
So, thanks for the question. That is very important. As we already noticed, the world has already been changed a lot because of that issues. Even now, in our laboratory, we are actively doing these remote style seminar discussions. And also because of that, sometimes we may utilize some computers outside of the university, because in some case they are going to the university may take some risks. And of course, because of the situation, we already changed what we are doing. And what is more important is that because such a world is changing, we have to make very difficult decisions because of lack of enough resources to resolve all problems. That is not just a computation problem. How we can reach the agreement about how we spend some resources for a specific purpose. So therefore, in recent days, we are spending a lot of efforts to build up some AI-based support system to have discussions and form some agreement and consensus with people. And today, I could not say any details about the research, but actually we are also having some collaborations to the social scientists and even sociologists to build up the actual systems as well as the government actions that is necessary for that. So because of that, actually our research, the way of or doing research or even the goal of the research may be closely related to our society. And we need to have a lot of feedback from people, even at the time of developing and even thinking about the future goals of our research. That is my answer to your question. And for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answer. To Prof. next. After the COVID, yeah, what the research development?
Oh, that's a good one. Look, I mean, I would just be happy that anything after COVID is going to be good, right? I just want it to be over. Right? So just the thought of this is a nice thought. Look, during the, let's talk about during first, because I think there's a lot of opportunities for the kind of work that I was doing. I found a lot of opportunities during COVID because I've done work in government surveillance and government monitoring of people and people's acceptance of that. And so I had wrote several papers in 2020 on this government surveillance topic. And then COVID happened. And then the first thing that was introduced was contact tracing. Suddenly the government is saying, oh, we need to know who your friends are. We need to know who you're with so that we can provide better health support. And I found the most interesting thing was the government is offering us something good. They're offering to tell us if we have been in a dangerous situation, that we should embrace this. But I was so surprised when people were fighting against it. I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but here in Australia, people fighting against it. You know, the government introduced this app called COVID Safe. You could put it on your phone and nobody wanted it. They're just fighting against something. And I was so amazed because even when we could see a very clear public safety need, people would still reject this because they believed they didn't understand what it was really for. So I spent a lot of time during COVID exploring that. And so I think there is still scope for this broader area of, we talk about technology acceptance, but there's also technology rejection. What are the conditions that we have when somebody, you offer them something good and they'll say, no, I don't want it. And in fact, they'll fight over it. What are the conditions that this exists? Because I myself was surprised to see that. And I know that it's not a universal situation because I had discussions with colleagues as well. So this is a more broader, big picture kind of thing, is when identifying the threats, when we are developing a new technology, and we would do a risk analysis of the new technology. What is the threat against my technology? We might need to consider, is there a chance that people might fight against my technology, even though I'm trying to help people, I'm trying to do something good, and we might need to accommodate that into our risk assessment for any new products, any new initiatives, because what recent history has shown us is that people don't always behave in a logical way. So I think there's still room for that, and I think that will continue on for a while. So that next time, let's hope there isn't a next time, but look, if there is an emergency again, then we can respond in a much better way and be more successful.
Okay, thanks for your answer. I think it's enough for the question. Yeah. So before we close this seminar, this presentation, I would like to have summary of this presentation. For the Professor Naofiti Fukuta is talk about the intelligent and IoT-based application for digital industry. It's about the computation and then optimization, and then in the end it's about trust. For the presentation, security and privacy are concerned in human society, which focus on the human from the security intent to the security behavior. And before I close, I commit will give an award in the form of certificate. I need, please help me to show the certificate for the keynote speaker. Please help me to awards. Yeah. Here for Professor Naofiti Fukuta, it is here for you, and for Prof. Asset from Nick Thompson is for you. And then for the delivery method, I asked to the committee for assistance in comparing to the two keynote speakers at this seminar. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. And this event, I return to the moderator. Thanks very much for your for Prof. Nick Thompson and from Nakota.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bambang Harjito. Ladies and gentlemen, please give round of applause again for Dr. Bambang Harjito as our dear moderator. And also, ladies and gentlemen, right now we're going to move on to the next agenda. But before, I would like to ask permission from Professor Nick Thompson and also Professor Naofiti Fukuta. We're going to ask you to join our breakout room that we have created before you leaving the Zoom meeting. Once again, from Professor Nick Thompson and also Professor Naofiti Fukuta, we're asking your permission to join the breakout room that we've created before you're leaving the Zoom meeting. Okay, right. So for dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a break after this, and we're going to be back here again at 1 p.m. Western Indonesian time. So it's around 1 hour and 15 minutes after this. We're going to have a break, and after the break, we're going to have the next keynote speaker, Associate Professor Wei-Cheng Wang from National Cheng Kung University, Taiwan. So if you want to stay here, I mean, in the Zoom meeting in the main session until later at 1, it's totally okay. But if you want to leave the Zoom meeting first and then later you're going to rejoin the link, it's totally okay also. But before, I would like to ask you to come 10 minutes before 1, so at 12:50. So that we're going to have more preparation to welcome our next keynote speaker, Associate Professor Wei-Cheng Wang from National Cheng Kung University, Taiwan. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to see you again, and we'll be again at 1 p.m. Western Indonesian time.
Okay, thanks.